Hey friends, welcome back. My name is Kim. I am so excited for today's video. This is going to be my favorite reads from 2025, the best books that I read in 2025. Now, it took me a little bit to compile this list actually. It was no small feat, partly because I just love to overcomplicate things for myself, but also I had this initial master list of favorite books from 2025. And then when I was kind of compiling my thoughts a little bit and writing out the reasons why I really liked the books, I ended up actually pulling a whole ton of just honorable mentions from that favorite list. So this is going to encompass two lists: honorable mentions and then favorites. The honorable mentions, I'm not really going to go into depth into them. I'm just going to say the titles. And then the favorites, we're going to dig a little bit. We're going to chat about them, stew on them a little bit. And my kind of not method, I suppose, but every year that I have done my favorite books of whatever year over the last few years on BookTube has been different. My first year, I think I think what I did was I said my favorite books from each genre that I had read in that year. Last year, I looked at all the books that I had read from each month and picked a favorite and a least favorite. And then this year, when I was kind of stewing over everything and looking at my list and then pulling out honorable mentions, I was kind of like swirling and circling around this core reason for why they're my favorites. And it's that I would absolutely reread them again and again and again. I reread two books this year, really enjoyed the experience. And when I was kind of just writing on my reasons why, I was almost like influencing myself to want to pick them up again. Like I was like, oh, I really want to pick this book back up right now, like as I'm kind of thinking back on my reading experience with it and what I liked about it and what I didn't like about it. Or rather, yeah, just what I liked about it. Yeah, so that's kind of my guiding principle with my list this year is like I would go out and purchase all these books so I can have them on my shelves, easily access them to reread them eventually, and I fully intend to for sure. Um, Also, I have noticed that there's a noticeable missing genre from my favorites list this year, and that is thrillers. And yeah, I find my reading is changing as I get older and as I just, read more books and read outside of my comfort zone with different things. And it's surprising to me because thrillers were like the genre that really got me back into reading as like an adult and reading more consistently. And so yeah, no favorites. I do have a thriller on my honorable mention list, but just one. All my other favorites from this year fall within kind of like literary fiction or just contemporary fiction. I even have a classic on there, which is really surprising to me. But yeah, definitely it has like lasting power in my mind. And so, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've yapped enough, but that was definitely surprising. And then also taking a look at the list of books of my favorites this year, they all have this like very consistent tone or like theme or just like very character focused books and really like a focus on humanity and like the human side of like our lived experiences and everything. And so I don't know, I feel like I'm really happy about my reading this year and my favorites from the year. And a lot of these favorites came from the second half of the year as well, which is not really much of a surprise because I feel like my reading as a hobby this year has really morphed and changed a lot. But my reading in general, like I feel like this list that I have, I want to also just encompass into 2026 as well. Like I really enjoyed all these books and would recommend all of them day and night, and even my honorable mentions. Very great books. And I suppose the difference between like, my favorites and then the honorable mentions is that again the favorites are like reread worthy for me in my mind. My honorable mentions are kind of like they're great books I would recommend them. They're not all perfect books in my eyes, but I had a great time with them. And looking back on my year, I'm like, yeah, I really enjoyed that book and I, would recommend it widely. But would I look to reread them? Probably not. So that's kind of the distinction between the two, and also a little bit of the list itself and how my reading has kind of like changed over this year a little bit. And I'm really excited to talk about all these books, really, truly. So, yeah, we will just jump in, starting with honorable mentions. So, again, I'm not going to go super in depth into any of these books. I'll just kind of put them up on the screen here. The Serpent Called Mercy by Roan Lau. If you are interested in hearing more in-depth thoughts about that book specifically, I did do a book review video for it, which I will link. Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. Havoc by Christopher Bullen. October in the Earth by Elizabeth Hawker. Patricia Wants to Cuddle by Samantha Allen. And Murder on Sex Island by Joe Firestone. I will actually say with those last two, Patricia Wants to Cuddle and Murder on Sex Island, those are just like a fun, good time. So if you're needing something that's like just very lighthearted and not super serious, definitely gravitate to one of those books. Okay, so my favorites from 2025. So, starting with a classic, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. If you know, we all know what Frankenstein is about, so I won't go too in depth about what the book is about per se. But I really, really liked this. This is the classic that kind of like has, or the book that I read this year that has a lot of like lasting power in my mind, and I do want to go back and reread it eventually. This might also be sticking in my mind partly because of the movie that was released. I really enjoyed the movie. I thought that it encompassed a lot of the themes that Mary Shelley had in her book. And yeah, I appreciated the movie and I appreciated what the director had done. But as far as like the book itself, focus, Kim. um, I really felt for the creature in this story. Now that some time has passed, I almost feel as though, and this is not like a perfect correlation to the larger conversation necessarily, but I do feel like the creature is almost like this example of like nature versus nurture. Um, you know, the creature never asked to be made. Frankenstein made it from a place of ego. At least that's my interpretation from it. And the creature wasn't doing, or, wasn't what he expected it to be. And he also became horrified with himself, Frankenstein did, and really kind of just abandoned the creature and left the creature to his own devices, and which is a horrible, cruel introduction into the world. And I felt for the creature pretty consistently throughout. I was like, oh my God, like, I feel so bad for him. And then throughout the story, what really kind of stood out to me was that this creature is interacting with the world and trying to find his way and stuff. And he sees the way that people and humans interact with each other with such kindness and gentleness and like friendship and love. And he wants that for himself too. And the world does not give that to him. And the whole nature versus nurture, the creature does things that are horrible eventually. And it almost kind of like leaves this thought, at least in my mind anyways, like if Frankenstein treated him differently or kind of like took him under his wing or just showed any kind of modicum of care for him, would the creature have turned out differently? And his introduction to the world and being in our world was so unkind to him that it made him into something that was, not horrific, but he did things that were not great. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed this book quite a bit. And yeah, really loved it. I'll be reading more from Mary Shelley, hopefully, maybe not next year, but maybe the year after. I have some other classics kind of on my radar that I want to get to, but yeah, really, really enjoyed it quite a bit. And it's split up into two separate parts, if I remember correctly, like the Victor Frankenstein, the scientist, how he kind of comes to be, you're in his world, and then the creatures part. And I enjoyed both parts equally, but I definitely felt it in my, like, my heart I suppose, or just like, the creature's story definitely has like lasting effect on me. So really enjoyed that. Okay, Eastbound by my Lise de Kringle. I did a whole kind of YouTube post on this book with my little review, but basically we follow Alyosha and Helene. Alyosha is a Russian conscript on a train, and he makes the decision that he does not want to be in the Russian army. He hears horrifying stories. Also, the setting where like the book opens of him on this train car is gritty. It is dark. It is not pleasant. People are not treating each other very kindly. There's a lot of, yeah, just not great things. And so he's also very young, and he's like, I don't want this for myself at all. And so he wants to get off the train. He's trying to get off the train. And the only thing is that his, I can't remember the proper term, like sergeant or like supervisor, is really keeping a close eye on all the conscripts and making sure that they make it to their destination. Alyosha meets Helene, who is French, and she is on this train also trying to escape something as well. You come to discover her story within the book, but basically, and also neither one of them speak the same language. Helene speaks French and Alyosha speaks Russian, but they have this understanding right away when they meet each other, like this unsaid communication that he wants to get off the train and Helene is going to help him, and she is a willing participant. She's going to help him get there. And she has her own reasons for being on this train. She has her own reasons for wanting to help him as well. And I just really appreciated like this glimpse into human nature in this novel. Like they don't understand each other, they don't speak the same language, but all throughout they use no words to communicate with each other. They use body language, the implicit like fear that they can feel like coming off of each other, as a way to kind of like, yeah, just communicate with each other and what the other person needs. I think that the way that it transpires is also quite like human in its own way, which I won't really touch on, but just their kind of very brief encounter with each other and relationship. I just like the way that it all panned out and played out. All the while, this book has this like vein of tension throughout, because Alyosha is trying to get off this train, and you're kind of sitting and waiting to see what's going to happen because this train makes multiple stops, which means he has multiple times where he can try and get off of this train. Does he? And so, yeah, I just found myself on the edge of my seat reading this as well. And it was excellent. And it's also under 200 pages. I think it's actually under 150 pages. And I had mentioned in my post about this book that oftentimes novellas like leave me wanting more. Like I feel like the author could have used more pages to flesh certain things out. But I felt like this was a perfect kind of novella in my opinion. Like I got to know the characters in their own way. Their motivations, obviously from what I've described was very clear, but Helene is like a character too. And then also like the setting and this like desperation. It's all just written so well, and the book is literally like, it's not even like a standard size book, it's like very tiny. Okay, Swimming in the Dark by Thomas Jadrowski. The setting in this book is 1980s war-torn Poland. Ludwig is our main character, and he meets Janusz, who is his love interest. The book is set in 3 different parts. You meet Ludwig when he is a kid, basically, kind of coming to terms with the fact that he is attracted to men. He likes men, kind of a coming of age aspect within that. And then as the timeline progresses, the different parts progress as well. And I just found this to be a like absolute like gut punch of a novel, honestly. The backdrop that is described, there's tension there. This is more than just a romance between Ludwig and Janusz. Like, yes, they're trying to find a way to be together and to be themselves in their home country that does not accept them and their sexuality. And within that as well, like there's themes of like conformity and resistance, and how Ludwig and Janusz both pursue that and how that looks differently for both of them. And I felt like there was this constant like push and pull between the two of them, and both wanting the same thing for themselves and to be with each other, but how do they make that work in their home country? And they're also, what was really apparent to me and like very clear was that they love their home country. Like Poland is their home. This is what they've known. This is all they've known. And they just can't, like, it's tough. Like, I couldn't imagine being in a home country that does not accept me for who I am. But yet, that's all I've known. This is where all my memories are. This is where I've grown up. This is where my family is. And yet, it's clear something has to change. Either I have to leave or something's got to give somewhere in order for, in this case, Ludwig to have any kind of semblance of like a happy and true life to himself. There were some very poignant chapters in here, especially the ones pertaining to like conformity versus resistance and how Ludwig grapples with that in his own way, and then seeing how Janusz does the same thing in his own way. And that was definitely like a line of tension between the two of them as well. Yeah, it was really good. And then She's a Lamb by Meredith Hambrock. I really, really enjoyed this. This was a good time. And again, another book that has just like this lasting impact on me. I do really want to reread this eventually, and I think I will try to reread it in 2026. I had to think about what year it was, which is strange. But anyway, so we follow Jessamine in this book, and she desperately wants to be Maria von Trapp in her theater's production. You follow along with her as she is trying to make this happen through all means. It starts out as satirical, quirky, and sassy, and then it does turn into this weird, tense, and very like spiraling read. And you follow along with a character who wants something so badly that she is willingly and actively blurring the lines of reality for herself. And I think it definitely takes a look at like what it takes to make it. And I think maybe people who work in theater or like are in this world itself maybe can understand that, because I feel like people who do end up making it in some capacity, you have to have some kind of modicum of like, or like some level of just like, I believe that this is going to happen, even though it doesn't look like it's going to. And it, based on how things currently are, there's no possible way it's going to happen, but I am going to make it happen. And, I feel like it does take a little bit of a level of like, thinking outside of what the current reality is in order to get that. And yeah, the tone of like desperation throughout this was really palpable as well. And yeah, I really enjoyed this a lot. I liked the way the writing and the story and the tone progressed throughout. I feel like it started out like I was laughing, I was having a jolly good time, and I was like, this is so funny. And then at some point I was like, wow, this is, like not super funny anymore. And it's kind of like, what is going on, kind of a thing. So yeah, I really thought that the way Hambrock had written this was really well done. And then we have Entitlement by Rumen Alam. I absolutely loved this book. This is not going to be a book that is for everybody, I don't think. I think that I really liked the writing in this specifically, but I think the writing is definitely going to be the thing that people are either going to love or they're really not going to like it at all. Basically, we follow Brooke as she takes a job with a billionaire who wants to find a worthy cause to give all of his money to. And so she's tasked with finding that worthy cause. Now, how the story progresses is that Brooke becomes very close to somebody who's obviously very wealthy. She's in very close proximity to his wealth. She like goes to his home. She just kind of sees the way he behaves because he has all this money in like almost like a flippant kind of fashion. And then she also has a close friend who is also very wealthy and is looking at like obscenely expensive apartments and whatnot. And so it really is like how she changes as a person because of the proximity to the wealth. I did a whole book review video about this book, and I will link it wherever it's going to show up on here, but this definitely was a standout for sure. And the tone of the cover of this book is exactly like the tone of this book itself. It's like very dark and shadowy, and like you're not, it's I don't know. This was a very well done cover. Whoever designed this for this book did a really good job with it. But yeah, it was really good. Loved it. I will say that if like Ruman Alam, I think is just kind of one of those authors where his writing and his stories are just kind of like they're your flavor or they're not your flavor. I read Leave the World Behind and I also really enjoyed that one. So I think he's just an author that I really enjoy reading from. But if you didn't like Leave the World Behind, go into that tentatively. Okay, and then The Conjoined by Jen Suk Fong Lee. I also did a book review video for this one as well, so go take a look at that if you want more info. But basically, we meet Jessica, and she's cleaning out her mom's house when they get to the deep freezer to clean it out, and they discover the bodies of two young girls. And Jessica remembers these girls from when she was younger, when her mom had fostered them. And this is really like this all happens, I think, within the first chapter, or might be the second chapter. But really, it's just a catalyst for Jessica's spiral of like who, not spiral like she's a lamb spiral, but spiral is in like it just upturns everything she knew about her life and what she thought she knew about, yeah, her life, her own values, her mother's values, the values that her mom raised her on, and what she's even kind of how she views her work. She's a social worker, and obviously these two girls being in the foster care system and her mom taking them in for a period of time, there's like some conversation there as well. And it was just, so this isn't, I also like to caveat this by saying, like, huge caveat, this is not a perfect mystery. It's not neat and tidy. I wouldn't even categorize this as like a mystery itself. It's certainly not, a nice, tight, clean, closed kind of box near the end of the book. Definitely open-ended in its own way. And I, would even say that this is just more of like a literary fiction than it is a mystery. You're kind of following along with Jessica as, yeah, she's kind of questioning everything that she's known. You also get the timeline of these two young girls when they came to stay with her and her mom, and how they ended up in the foster care system and everything that transpired there. I just found it really engrossing, honestly. I just kind of kept reading. I just found the writing really captured my attention the whole time. It is very dark and complex and very layered in its own way too. But it was definitely like my own favorite, but I could see a lot of people maybe reading it and not totally loving it, and that's totally okay, especially if you go in expecting like a mystery and a very well done mystery. It's not. It's definitely all about Jessica as a character, and a lot of commentary within this book as well, that I just thought was layered in like a really perfect way. All right, and then the last book on this list. Also, this list is not in any particular order. I was going through my story graph, and this is the way it just kind of rolled out. But back to the very first book that I had read this year, which is Mame by Jessica George. Are any of us surprised that this is on this list? Probably not. um, so this is a really beautiful coming of age story. We follow Maddie in London, and she is living with her dad currently, who has Parkinson's. And so she's basically his primary caregiver. She has an older brother, but her older brother is just kind of out gallivanting, pursuing his own career. Her mom is back in Ghana, taking care of, I think it's like a Airbnb, I believe. But anyways, yeah, she spends most of her time in Ghana. And so Maddie and her dad are alone, but living alone in London. And then her dad also has a person that comes in to help, like with bathing and things like that. So, she has some supports in some ways. But basically, Maddie's mom is coming back home from Ghana to live with her husband. And so Maddie, like her mom is saying, like, Maddie, this is your opportunity to go and experience life, go live on your own, kind of a thing. And so Maddie does that. And this is like how it transpires. Like, she has a list that she's made for herself, like smoke a cigarette, I think also like have a kiss, like things like that on her list. Maddie is also, I think, in her late 20s as well. So she feels a little bit behind in life. Like she hasn't experienced certain things because she's been taking care of her dad. And something that I really liked in this book that I thought she did really well, like Jessica George like portrayed really well, was that Maddie's relationship with her dad, like Maddie never viewed her dad as like an inconvenience or, you know, her duty to her dad and taking care of her dad. Like she never viewed it as it being in the way of her experiencing life. But at the same time, she's kind of thinking and coming to terms with the fact that like, yeah, like I had to stay and take care of my dad, but obviously I want to. He's my dad. And it was never an issue. It was never a question for her to take care of her dad. But it did kind of, in some ways, inhibit her from experiencing life in the way that she thought she was going to. And, you know, you feel all the feelings when you read this. You feel frustration, you feel sadness, frustration towards her mom and her brother. And then, you know, I feel like if you don't get misty eyed reading this, I will side eye you. But yeah, I definitely, I really, really appreciated this. I enjoyed following along with Maddie and her story and how it develops, and the name of the book, Mame, and what that means for her as a character and how that impacts her development in the story as well. I found this really well done, and the writing was, I don't know, I feel like I'm not going to read anything like this again. You know, it was kind of one of those books. And I think there are some parallels to Jessica George and like Maddie, the author, and like, you know, entwining her own personal life experiences in this character as well, especially as it relates to like her relationship with her dad. Yeah, I really, really loved this. I did a whole book review video on this as well, which I will link. I'll link all the videos I reference in general here, but yeah, really loved this as well. This was a standout, which is pretty impressive. 12 whole months had passed, and I still think about that book occasionally and Maddie as a character. And, you know, sometimes when people say, like, oh, if this character were in present day or like in our real world, I think about them. And Maddie's definitely one of those characters. I'm like, you know, if she was like, you know, walking about in the streets like an actual person, I hope she's doing well. Okay, well, I think that that is my list. That is my favorite books from this year, my best books that I had read this year. My honorable mentions list are true honorable mentions. I do want to spotlight specifically rereading. I wasn't sure if I should incorporate it into my favorites list from this year because I just wanted to focus on like books that were kind of new to me this year that I had read for the first time. However, I did reread a couple of books, and that is You Again by Kate Goldbeck and Tin Man by Sarah Winman. You Again by Kate Goldbeck, I loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Loved it more the second time than I did the first time. Like, I think the first time I read it, I rated it 4.75 stars, which, like, how particular of me. But upon reread, I'm like, this is a great book. This is a great romance, in my opinion. Everything is very well rounded. We have messy main characters, a messy main female character. I was invested in their love and like seeing them get together. And, you know, I was laughing, I was chuckling. It was just like the perfect romance for around the holidays. I was happy I reread it at that time and I just enjoyed it so much more. And yeah, the yearning that happens in the book as well. I don't know. It was just so, so good. And then I reread Tin Man by Sarah Winman. This, I think, has got to be like my favorite book of all time. It is a book where if somebody asks me, what's your favorite book? This is one of the ones that I will constantly say. It is on my shelf behind me, but I'll just put it up here. I reread it in the middle of the summer and I enjoyed it even more upon reread, and I was able to glean more from it. I've talked about this book a few different times, I think, in total, but I also did a whole book review video as well. So please go and watch that because I also share some of the writing from the book and talk about like, yeah, the characters in general and just give a very thorough synopsis on it. It's under 300 pages as well, but yeah, I just really love it. I think I'm going to go back to it year and year again, every so often. It's just very tender, and I definitely got more emotional rereading it than I did the first time I read it, which is interesting because like I know exactly what's going to happen, but just seeing how Sarah Winman had gone about like portraying everything that had happened and how everything transpired and like getting invested in these characters, like yeah, I think it's just I don't know, I really really loved it. I think it's a, should I say it? I don't know, a perfect book in my opinion. But anyways, yeah, that is all the notable reads from this year, my favorites. I'm really happy with this list. I think I'm most like happy with this list of all the favorite books of the year videos that I have done so far. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you've read any of these, if we have any in common, if you notice any like anything from your favorites of the year. Like, is there anything that is standing out to you about your favorite books from the year that says anything about like your reading as a hobby itself? But yeah, other than that, I hope you had a happy new year. I hope you are enjoying what you're reading, and I will see you in the next video.